Full honesty, I'm not a great PvP'er. I spend most of my time creating videos about PvE builds or even how to avoid PvP in the Dark Zone altogether. But that makes me the perfect person to tell you about this build that I've been using in Conflict to take me from a KD well below 1 to one that is well over 1, and it is continuing to improve. My PvP playstyle is what I would call poke, a balanced approach where I go all in where I have the advantage, but I fall back to regroup and heal if it's not. And this build reflects that. There are 3 pillars to the build. If you've watched any of my other PvP related videos, you will know that in PvP, running 5 or 6 armor cores is actually very normal due to how armor scales better than weapon damage. But like most things in PvP, there is a counter. The capacitor is unique in that it comes with both damage to armor and damage to targets out of cover. Matching this with the contractor's gloves gets me to 20% damage to armor, putting me at a big advantage when taking on players who are relying on their armor in trades. The capacitor is an assault rifle and these scale best in PvP, so that time to kill is not ridiculously short and we end up with first to shoot wins every time. The weapon damage of all weapons is scaled down for PvP, and you can see this in the stats tab of your inventory. Assault rifles fare best, scaling down to 40% of base damage, which is why they are so popular in PvP. That's not to say that you don't see other weapons, but they are typically ones that have some sort of buff on their damage output. Pestilence with its Plague of Outcasts, or Lady Death with its weapon damage buff. The capacitor also benefits from its own damage buff, with its weapon damage scaling off both weapon damage and skill tier cores, something that I will be leveraging in this build.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary. 'Tis but a scratch.
As I said, my playstyle is to poke, and what I found works best for this is to run 6 armor cores for around 2 million armor and 3.5% or 73,000 armor regen per second. To do this I'm using the Gilligard and Golem gear brand sets. This is enough armor regen to heal me through bleed damage, pestilence ticks, burn damage and so on. It is also great at getting me back up to full armor quickly after a trade. Look at this footage of me being hit by a seeker mine and shrugging it off. If you are going to run a seeker mine, by the way, be prepared to follow it up. Even if it does little damage, it will cause players to stagger and be unable to fight back effectively. So make sure that you're using this to take them on, rather than just lobbing mines in the hope that they will do any real damage. For my chest piece talent, I am also running Unbreakable for the 50% armor replenishment, which is about 1 million armor when my armor breaks. This has got me out of many sticky situations, and for the way I play, I prefer it over say perfectly efficient with the firewall specialization, but that is also a good option if you can pop an armor kit just before engaging for the 300% armor repair it gives you over 10 seconds. In order to leverage the brand set bonuses of Gilligard and Golem gear, I am running the Ninja Bite backpack. Now of course I am losing out on a defensive backpack talent like Adrenaline Rush, or offensive like Vigilance or Companion, but Ninja Bite brings its own advantages that with this build work really well. The additional weapon damage and skill tier cores it has adds 22.5% weapon damage, which scales better even though it is additive because the build has 6 armor cores. It also lets me run Picara's holster and unlock its 2-piece bonus of a skill tier, adding 17.5% weapon damage with its second attribute. I'm also using the Technician specialization for the additional skill tier it gives, which adds another 7.5% weapon damage. Adding skill tiers also buffs the damage and duration of the Stinger Hive I'm using. This is a great skill for PvP, maybe less so for the damage it does, albeit this is nice, but more for the crowd control preventing enemies from moving as quickly. I use my hive in 2 ways. Defensively by dropping it at a choke point or flank to wall me and slow enemies down as they come through, or aggressively by dropping it during trades to give me an advantage. The other thing about the capacitor is its mods, which include 10% critical hit chance and 30% critical hit damage mods. I am running critical hit chance and critical hit damage on every piece of gear. Well, except this one where I need to grind for a better roll. With a fully optimized build, I will be running 56% critical hit chance and 135% critical hit damage, which is not bad for a build with so much survivability. For my last skill I run a few options depending on how the enemies are playing. A jammer pulse is a good option when enemies are using stinger hives and defender drones. A sticky bomb deals a huge amount of damage in PvP, and the burn variant can make enemies unable to shoot back effectively, and is great when enemies are defending and using cover. A decoy is great when the enemy team is using seeker mines and striker drones, as well as for when you want your nameplate to be invisible as you close in for a kill. So this is the full build. Don't worry about expertise, as in Conflict expertise is removed, making it a more pure version of PvP in Division 2. Learning what playstyle works best for you is key in getting the right build, so I'd recommend you look at this video as well for some more PvP build ideas.